Yeah, so tell me about your wedding.
We got married in Uluwatu in Bali. It was the 26th of September. I should remember that. It's on the inside of the ring.
Nice.
But yeah, it was just the best day ever. We lucked out because most people that get married overseas will go over a year or 6 months before, suss out the venue, the vendors, and all the rest. But we're a little bit strapped for cash, so we just kind of trusted in our wedding planner, and the day was just it was like a dream. We had a rough vision of what we wanted the wedding to look like in our mind when we kind of decided to do Bali. But yeah, it was just above expectation. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, nice. I'm so happy for you guys, eh?
Yeah, it's we've been together just under 8 years now. So one of my work colleagues was with her hubby for 1 year. Now they've been together for 10, but we've kind of flipped it, done the other way around. We've been together just under 8, but then got married now. So
Yeah, nice.
took the long road.
Awesome. And how is work going?
Work, yeah, that's
Going well?
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation. Coming up to the wedding, I've done a rugby league club for 4 years on top of my normal workload with physiotherapy. So I do like a full-time job there. And then I've done the head physio role for just a local rugby league club for 4 years in a row. So about 6-7 months of the year, I work 6 days a week.
Mm-hmm. Just put that a little closer.
And so with that, I was managing the workload well enough for the first 3 years, kind of get a bit of burnout and then kind of recover over the summer, take some time for me, and I was not too bad. But then, this year was it was a roller coaster. I had a bit of family conflict coming up to the wedding, had the workload with footy, had some stuff go. My partner and I, or my wife and I, went through at the time, and I started having panic attacks and I properly burned out. Had to have some time off work, and the mental health discovery has been pretty real.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, it was pretty tough time. I'm still kind of recovering from burnout, so I've still reduced my work hours at the moment and kind of still trying to find my feet, but it's kind of led me to the realization that I want to kind of take a bit more control of my life and start my own little business venture. Of course, it'll have its own hurdles and its own stress, but it's an exciting journey that I'm about to start.
Oh, congratulations, bro.
Thank you.
What do you think caused all that? Is it just like you still been training powerlifting, or no, you're not?
No, so I retired from powerlifting probably 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
Just because the federation, the main body in Australia, which was Powerlifting Australia, broke up due to some conflict between the CEO and then the head of the International Powerlifting Federation. Mm-hmm. And so they kind of got kicked out of the IPF. And then as a result, another person broke away, started a new federation, and then that process essentially repeated itself. And now there's 4 or 5 sort of bodies. There's no real depth of competition. There's lots of politics, lots of big personalities, and it's not what I was in the sport for. It's not what I loved about it. It was the personal challenge, but also the challenge within the country. So I just reached a point where I was let down by a few people, and I just chose to walk away with my head held high and leave it where it was.
Are you still doing the training? Like, you still training similar, or have you backed off your training a bit? Or
No, training's completely changed. So since I stopped powerlifting, it was pretty demanding. Like a lot of people I've met over the years would say, I did powerlifting for a year. I loved it, but the training would just kill me. And I did that for the better part of 10 years. So when and really investing heavily into work with doing my full-time job in the practice and then the footy on top of that, I just didn't have the energy or the motivation anymore, and I'm not very good at not giving all of myself to something.
Yeah.
And it kind of got to the point where I was just exhausted, sleeping poorly. I didn't really have a lot of time for Leash, my wife, and I reached a point where I just didn't love the sport. I was getting let down, so my training's completely changed. Instead of training 5 days a week, and a lot of it was really, really, really heavy stuff coming up to a comp or high volume or whatever it was required for with whatever comp I had coming up, I've gone from that to just training like I guess what you call a normal person. I train in the gym maybe 3 to 5 days a week. I'll go for a run with my wife once or twice a week.
Yeah.
Or what I call a run, like a walk run, like a couch to 5K sort of deal. But I've lost about 10 kilos compared to what I was this time about even 1 year, 2 years ago. So
How has your body been feeling? Like, I know when I'm training weights, I'm tired, I want to sleep, I'm sore. I'm guessing you're way more conditioned for that. But have you felt like a response in your body from changing the training?
Massively. I'm way less inflamed as well. I was always finding, like, even looking back at photos, even my face was almost puffy. Like, a lot of people that see me these days even go, "Oh, you look good." Like, a lot of people say, "Oh, you still look big, but you look good. Like,
you look healthy." When you walked in the door, then I was just like, "You're glowing."
Yeah. I mean, a little bit of sun always helps with that, but yeah, everyone just goes, "You just look good. You look healthy. You look fit." You know, so my body's definitely responded better to having less stress from the workload of powerlifting training. The neurological fatigue was really demanding. Like, you just feel really flat. I don't know if the listeners would know, but like, if you go to the gym and you try to do like a 1 rep max bench press or some really heavy lifting, you feel like you're just a bit tapped for 1 day, 2 day, 3 days. But for me, that was just a constant. So I got to a point where I just was accustomed to living that way. But now that I've stopped it, I actually feel like I've got more of myself to give to people all the time.
On top of like physically being sore in the body, if you're going for like one rep maxes and you're just cooking your central nervous system, how much does that affect your brain clarity?
Well, I was struggling at work. So with what I do as a private practice, or like a musculoskeletal physio, where I assess the body and the whole body holistically to find not just what's happening, but why it's occurring. Someone could have lower back pain, which is being caused by chronic ankle instability or a previous shoulder dislocation or whatever, right? I need to be able to give my entire focus and my entire brain to that patient. But on any one day, I could see anywhere from 10 to 17 patients, depending on how long my day is, right? And so I found when I was in that transition point where I started work, but I was still powerlifting, it was just not impossible, but I would get home of a night and I couldn't even listen to Alicia's story about a day, because my mind would drift off, or I'd just be like, I just need an hour for you. Like, just don't talk to me. I couldn't engage. I just had nothing to give. So it was so demanding neurologically in my brain.
Would you prioritize more when you're competing? Would like sleep and recovery be a massive part of it?
Yeah, it was huge. I would always invest a lot of time and money into recovery, but there were points in time, I think, reflecting back, I was overtraining quite a lot because I would sleep quite poorly. Like, if I did a really heavy squat session where I could do, I don't know, let's say 4 sets of 8 reps at 240 kilos, and
blows my mind.
And I'll do that, but I would drop down to that weight after doing anywhere from 2 to 5 reps, or like I'll do like a set of 2 or 3 reps at 300 kilos, you know, like, so I'll do that, and then I'll do the back off set for volume, and then I'll go and do accessory work, which was like leg extension or lunges or hamstring curls, and I can't even do the accessory work now at the weight that I used to do it after
really
all the squat. No, like, I look back at what I was doing now, and I don't get DOMS, like I don't get as much muscle soreness now, because I truly just don't push my body as hard as I used to, and I'm thinking more long term now. What can I do, not just in 2 or 3 years' time, but what can I get done in the gym in 20 years from now? So yeah, for a long time I was heavily overtraining, and I remember after like a squat workout, I'd have a headache for an hour, 2 hours, because I would just push my body so hard. But then I'd sleep like trash because my body was so stressed from the workload. I'd go to sleep at 10, probably realistically 10, 11 o'clock at night, and I wake up every hour, 2 hours, and I just toss and turn because I couldn't get into like a good sleep state.
When you're saying that you wouldn't do the same weight that you were after them big sessions, does that like probably just come from a place of ego? Does that spark anything in you to be like, I want to hit them numbers again? I want to be...
Just before I kind of started having panic attacks early this year with all the stress, there was this weekend where I thought, I'm going to give powerlifting another crack. I deserve to show myself what I've got, because I don't even I started barbell squatting about a week or 2 ago, and I've kind of got this little part of me that goes, oh, come on, just give it one more crack. But I squatted 140 for a couple of sets of 10, just like no belt, no knee sleeves, and they felt really good. And my wife just came over and she goes, "You just make that look too easy." And I know it sounds egotistical, but without training, as you get a bit older as a male, you just get that man strength. You know what I mean? Like you get that man strength, and a part of me wants to go, "Come on, have another crack, get back into powerlifting, see what you've got." But I look back at what I was doing before, and I wouldn't say it was like, I don't think it's egotistical, but I look now and I just go, I just don't know how I was sustaining it.
What when you say like with that man strength, what is a peak for like a powerlifter?
In powerlifting, like there are guys that are still hitting PBs at like late 30s, early 40s.
Yeah, right.
Because like a big part of it is skill acquisition. So how well can you perform the movement? And a lot of that would probably be better reflected in Olympic weightlifting, those really highly explosive movements. But
do you want to do any of that?
No, it's such a.
I reckon I think you just jump straight up there, eh?
I'm not mobile enough in the right way. Like my body's become so accustomed to powerlifting because I picked it up when I was 18, and I've done it did it for probably like 12 years now, better part of 10 years. So it's a really different energy system as well. Olympic weightlifting's a lot more like the snap, the power, how fast can you produce power. As powerlifting, you can kind of grind those weights out. And that was something that I had the natural ability for, is just to stick with a lift, push hard and grind it. But you can't do that in Olympic weightlifting.
Yeah.
And not to mention, a lot of my power comes from lower body, whereas Olympic weightlifting, you still need to have a lot of upper body overhead power, and my overhead pressing has always been something I've been poor at.
Yeah, right. I remember when we were I'd done a couple of sessions of you, and I was so used to, like with squats, trying to be slow and you want to get that pump and time under tension, and just even that small adjustment of when you're saying like just fire it, like you want to like drive it up, and you're training that spark to lift. And I remember you explaining it to me about you're almost training your central nervous system, that firing. You use the example of you can go into a 200 kilo deadlift and then it might be 1 RM. Why can't you go and lift it again? Your muscles are still there and it's like that energy.
Yeah, it's the motor units, right? So it's not just the light bulb, but it's the wire that turns on the light bulb. So you can have 100 light bulbs in a room, but if your wire can only turn on 40 at a time, the room will only be so bright. But if you can make the wiring turn all 100 on at one time, well, it's a lot brighter, right? So same with our muscles. If you can train your nervous system and train the muscles to be able to make it all flicker on at the right time, you get way more power production. So that's a good reflection of what Olympic weightlifting is like, whereas they can move a weight way faster with more power, but a good powerlifter might only be able to do 80 light bulbs in the room, but they can sustain that for a longer time. So it's that energy system difference where you can get more out of the muscles from the nervous system in such a short period of time.
So when people come and train with you and they might have already been training for like 10 years and they've hit their PBs and they haven't seen any improvement in a long time, what were the big things that you'd focus on in getting results? Because I remember when we were both at the gym and chatting to people and they're like, he's a fucking genius, eh? Like, I've been just sitting here stagnant for so long and in 2 weeks I'm hitting PBs again.
Big thing for me, I guess, was simplifying the technique as well. Like a lot of people will be training 10 years, but they're doing some of the really basic fundamental things. I don't want to say wrong, but they could always have room for improvements, whether it was deadlift, like the big three, so squat, bench press, and deadlift. But it was just about optimizing their movement based on their leverages or their body position. That would often add a couple kilos straight away, but then training that movement pattern. So that's where we come back to the light bulbs, like being able to make them more efficient, but then making that movement more efficient itself. So getting more motor units to turn on. But then other than that, I guess addressing where they were weak otherwise, was their tricep strength, or for their bench press letting them down, or was it glute or hamstring weakness for their squat or deadlift? So then just addressing their other generalized deficits.
Would you talk much with them about like mindset?
Yeah, I actually talked about this with a patient today. I would always say to patients, their last set, if they were starting to get fatigued and they were getting a little bit sloppy with their technique, I'd always use the phrase like a high effort set, where no matter how hard it gets, you stay locked in really tight and you're really focusing on executing that movement pattern as efficiently as you can. So that's where, like you were saying before, you go down, I'd say now snap, or like really push and drive through that part of the movement. I'd force them to do that under neurological fatigue, and then they'll go, oh, that absolutely cooked me, but it felt way better.
Would you change the weight?
No, like it would still be part of whatever their working weight was for the day. So if they were doing 3 sets of 5 and their first 2 sets, they were pretty tired and they get to the last one, I'd really encourage that high effort or that mindset of don't let the fatigue or the neurological fatigue win. You got to really focus on pushing hard, tap everything you've got there. Like,
where do you draw the line with that, with being fatigued? When do you listen to the body and like, even if I might have a specific workout scheduled for tomorrow and I'm fatigued, do I push through or do I have a rest day and listen to the body?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess I was probably better at doing that for my clients in terms of structuring their program and monitoring fatigue and how they were feeling. I guess for me, I'd almost just blunt that out. That's probably why I wouldn't sleep well. I led myself to burnout, but I guess just knowing I think it's a Whoop. The armbands people wear, stuff like that, or just knowing what your generalized resting heart rate is. So you know if your resting heart rate's high, you're probably in a state of fatigue.
Yeah, I use the Aura Ring.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So there's heap of awesome resources like that these days. But I guess I was probably pretty old school where I was like, I just continue to train hard no matter what. And I'll probably just eat more food, which is why I got bigger, heavier, stronger. But I don't think it helped me out long term because then I started to get all these niggles all the time. I was always sore or fighting an injury. Or
did you ever have any big injuries?
I wouldn't say I had any like big injuries that really were huge setbacks, but injuries that would just linger and linger. Oh, like I had a really minor pec strain which put me out of benching for a couple of weeks. But other than that, it was just all these annoying niggles where I'd have like a flare up of my lower back pain, or I have elbow pain that would just not let me bench press to my full potential for weeks or months at a time. It'd go away for a while, then it'd come back. I guess before that all happened before I was a physio. So I guess my understanding of what's going on in my body is much better now, and I can work around it or self-treat as well to get a better outcome. But yeah, it's just no major injuries, but lots of niggles.
With that, how, and not recommending it, but how much can the body push through one before you really do a serious injury? Like I've got niggles when I'm running, and sometimes I'm thinking to myself, is something really going to happen here? Like, am I really going to do an injury on this run? And then I'll get through it and I'm like, oh, I'm sweet. But where's that line too? Because I hear so many people just pushing through niggles.
How old are you?
31.
31. It's such an age-specific question because I've got people that come and see me in the practice and they go, oh, have you had any history of knee issues? They go, no, never. And I'll treat and manage it as if it's nothing major. And I'm not the best physio in the world, but I like to think I can
You're bloody good.
do a bloody good job, and I can change a lot of stuff. And I get to a point where some people, and there's one woman who sparks my mind, and I go, she had a meniscal tear, so the cartilage that sits between the two bones in the knee, and it was pretty bad, and it was pushing. It's like the mortar between the two bricks was kind of pushing out to the side, so it was quite a significant meniscal injury with extrusion. And I couldn't change it. It was to a point we got the MRI and it showed that. She's then had a cortisone injection, not much change, and now she's gone and had surgery, and now she's great. You know, someone like yourself might have little niggles just because some muscles are tight and it affects the way the joints move, and you probably won't get injured. So I guess to answer your question, how far can you push? Well, I guess it depends on what's going on in the background. A lot of people have some chronic injuries or chronic changes in their body that sit in the background. Someone might have no back pain until they're 40, but they've slowly been changing the morphology or the structure of that disc between L5 and S1, so right in their lower back, for the better part of 15 or 20 years if they're doing a manual job. So they can go and start at the gym and do deadlifts for a year, and then all of a sudden they hit their next PB and they go, boah, my back got really sore. It was the deadlift. And yeah, it probably was the deadlift, but it was the straw that broke the camel's back, where the 15 or 20 years leading up to it was a large contributor. So how far can people push their body? I guess as far as they can before they break.
When you're treating people, do you see quite often it's an injury from doing the deadlift, or is it like the central nervous system's turned on to avoid the injury and you're working on them just to turn that off?
Oh, this is a tricky one, because in the physio world, there's like these really big differing opinions where people think the structure that's affected isn't always indicative of pain, and the pain science, what you're feeling isn't always reflective of the injury, and all these different things. So I guess for me, I would say it's not the nervous system that lets them down. I think tissue damage is probably pretty indicative of the pain, as controversial as people might think, but it's not always how bad it is. It can be how bad your brain perceives it to be as well. So neurological. So you've got your amygdala, which is a part of your brain, which is like a threat receptor. So people that suffer anxiety or panic attacks, the more anxiety you feed it, the more your amygdala becomes aware of the stress, the anxiety. You become more like a gazelle in the safari or in the plains of Africa, as opposed to the lion that's kind of cruising and sitting back.
Yeah.
So people that are scared of hurting their back or more aware or more anxious are probably more likely to feel pain more than the people that go, oh, my knee's sore, whatever.
You're right.
Yeah, so it's one of those questions for me where I go, oh, God, how long do we have to talk about it? But I think tissue damage matters. So it's not just the nervous system letting down, trying to protect you, but it's more so what structure have you damaged and how much have you damaged it, but then also how much are you responding and reacting to the pain.
They feel it more because they're more aware of it. Like if people are more focusing on it, does it make the injury worse at all?
Yeah, because it's part of like the feedback loop with the brain, because people that are paralyzed from the waist down, right, if you put a knife in their thigh, as brutal as it sounds, then probably not going to feel it, right? Because there's no efferent stimuli. So there's nothing going up to the brain to tell the brain there's damage to this muscle or there's damage to our body, right? It's that signal gets sent to the brain, and then your brain will send an afferent stimuli to go back out and say, this is how it should feel. So if you don't have the stimulus there, then you're not going to feel it.
Yeah, right. Guessing when you were powerlifting, you would have been so goal orientated, so goal focused. Do you have that now with your work and career moving forward?
Yeah, I guess that was part of the problem leading up to the wedding, where I'm pretty bad at filling up my cups probably a bit too much, and they start to overflow. But I've since kind of starting physio, I've just been so focused on trying to be the best physio that can help people take their pain away, but then also just kind of progress my career as fast and rapidly as I can. But now that I've taken a step back in other areas of my life, so not overcommitting with rugby, not doing powerlifting, kind of managing my fatigue better, I'm super, super excited to kind of start the next journey of my life with like building a business the way I want to, and offering a service I think a lot of people won't get elsewhere.
Yeah, you're going to do it all in Newcastle?
Yeah. I had some long-term friends / patients of mine who own a gym, which is Core Fitness.
Oh, nice.
Out at Gateshead, yeah. So they kind of been trying to wrangle me in there for the last year, and I kept saying, oh, I'm not going to do it, not the right time. And then I went, oh, it's too far away from home or too far away from where I was situated at the moment. And then it was only about 4 or 6 weeks ago, I kind of said, oh, is that space still available? So I popped into the gym and had a look around, but it was up a set of stairs. And I went, oh, I would love to, but I can't be upstairs for a physio if there's no elevator. And then you're not going to put an elevator in a gym, like like one of those warehouse style gyms. Yeah. Anyway, we're walking around and they've just put like a big rehab center in there. So they've got like infrared saunas, ice baths. Yeah, steam room. Yeah, it's amazing. They've got like a Pilates studio upstairs. Mitch, who owns the gym with his wife Tamara, he's a pretty handy guy. So he built all of it.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, wow.
And it looks so polished. And I went, what's that room there? It was like a sliding door. So I opened the sliding door, and it's just this like a room just full of shit. It was just full of like drop down saw, ladder, like bits of wood, like all that sort of stuff that you just kind of shove in the corner so no one can see it. And I went, oh, does that work for you guys? He goes, I didn't even think of that. So I walk in, and it's about 3-4 meters deep, not super wide, but it's actually going to widen the room for me. And it was just perfect.
Really?
Yeah. So I'll have like 2 car parks. I'll have the room in there. Got the little waiting area, the rehab room. The rehab center's just around the corner from it inside the gym.
Hey, nice.
And I just, when you see something and it's almost like in a movie where someone kind of sees what it is, and it's like that little haze comes over and they can see it change in front of their eyes. You can picture what it will look like when it's all done. I can even picture it right now in my mind where I go, oh, I can see what it's going to be like with the table, the desk, the chair, the patient. Like it just felt right straight away.
What excites you most about that?
It sounds horrible, but like there's a big monetary incentive. People kind of hear if someone's a physio or a doctor and they go, oh, you must make lots of money. But it's not the case. Like physios make a modest salary, probably above like the average. But for what we invest into the job, it's not a huge return. So being able to kind of run your own business, run your own practice, of course, there's a huge monetary incentive. But I guess not just working for someone else, but painting my own picture, creating my own brand, my own image, and being the product of the business. I've got people that only want to see me for physio. They've been coming back not because they keep injuring the same thing, but because they want to get sorted and get themselves sorted by the same person for a number of years now. And I guess it's built the reputation of where I am now.
Yeah.
Whereas I really want to build kind of my reputation, but my own brand as well.
Does your powerlifting career help that a lot?
It has for a long time, especially when I started out at the practice. I was still powerlifting and still competing at the time. And funnily enough, I wouldn't say I treat a lot of powerlifters.
Yeah, right.
I never really have, but I definitely have people that look at my bio on the website and go, they come in and see me and they go, oh, your bio was very impressive. I can't believe you can lift so much. I went, oh, cool. They went, yeah, it's why I booked in with you, because I get sore at the gym with squatting, and you must know. But there are lots of really good powerlifters out there that wouldn't make good physios. And just because I've done powerlifting, that doesn't really change how I would treat a patient and how I would manage a specific injury. It definitely gives me probably some more insight, but I guess the reputation I've built through powerlifting probably creates some curiosity with people, makes them think I do a better job.
Tell me about chiropractors.
Look, there's a place for everyone.
Is it a scam or not?
I don't want to say it's a scam. I don't want to upset any chiros out there, because there's some chiros out there who you would probably say are more like a physiopractor. So they're the ones that will still do a manip or a high velocity crack or a manipulation, but they also do the soft tissue work. They might be with the patient for half an hour or even an hour. But I saw a chiropractor in my early 20s, and I would see them once, twice or 3 times a week for the first 6 weeks. For about a 4-minute appointment, and it was in and out and in and out, and
they're not cheap.
Not cheap. You still can use private health on them, but the thing I say to people is, like, I can crack, and chiros will go, well, you can't do the cracks that I can do, and that's all good and fine, but it's not always just a stiff joint. That's the problem. People can have a lack of motor control. They can have a tight muscle, a weak muscle. They can have an unstable joint. So they can have a labral tear in the shoulder. They can have in your upper cervical spine. So between the base of your skull and the second cervical vertebrae down, you can have an alar ligament tear. So if you have a whiplash injury and you whip your head too hard, you can stretch the ligament between those two. So it can create instability. That's not going to get fixed by a crack. So these are the issues that I kind of think about, and I definitely question. And the other thing I would say to people is, what's the only allied health that's not available in hospitals? In hospitals, they even get acupuncturists in to help induce induce pregnant women into labor.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, it's more like a more natural approach, but you get occupational therapy, podiatry, nutrition, dietetics, speech pathology, physio, doctors, but what's not in hospitals?
You're right.
Chiropractors.
Well, I've never used one, but I've heard good things about them. And can you just explain to me? Because
about what?
I might sound a little bit silly, but what's the difference between an osteo to a physio and a chiropractor?
I would probably align myself more in terms of how I treat with an osteo. I haven't done a degree in osteo, but I've done some osteo style courses, and I'm doing a cranial osteopathy course coming up this year. Mm-hmm. So where you treat the skull essentially and the nervous system. But an osteo probably more holistic in the way they approach the body. So it's not just, like I said before, if you've got lower back pain, it's not just the lower back that's the problem, it's the foot. So an osteopath will treat holistically from the whole body, not just an isolated singular approach. Mm-hmm. A physio traditionally will treat the muscles and the bones and the joints. Mm-hmm. A chiropractor will treat the spine, typically through manipulation.
So when you say more holistically, this might sound exaggerated, but if someone's got a sore shoulder, you can fix their foot to fix the shoulder.
Yeah, I've had that. I've only had that 2 or 3 times, and you even think to yourself, "God, is this really the problem?" But yeah, absolutely.
How do you identify that?
So I've undergone training from a incredible physio from Canada called Diane Lee. Mm-hmm. She does what's called the integrated systems model. So essentially, the integrated systems model, you integrate literally all the systems into one full approach. So it's a way to assess the patient or not even in standing, but assess them during their meaningful tasks. So let's say their problem is sitting down. So you'll check their body kind of in standing, and then as they go into their sitting position, does their pelvis rotate heavily to one side? Does a thoracic ring, so one of the ribs, the whole ring twist the opposite way? Does their foot, as they sit down, is their foot pushing their pelvis? Is their foot, is the rib causing the foot to pronate to keep you balanced? It's not just what is happening, but why. And then once you identify what we call the driver, mm-hmm. or what is causing that issue to occur, you can then apply whatever treatment skills you have. So I could go do a course on the shoulder, the ankle, the hip, or whatever. And then once I've identified it, I can then do a further assessment of that isolated area.
And when you say they're coming down and their hips might be turning to a different way, what causes this? Is this just imbalances in muscles over years, or?
It could be anything. So I had a patient this week, 24-year-old 400-meter runner. Mm-hmm. She super lovely, had seen a physio last week because she had lower back pain on the left side. More painful when sprinting, not as bad when walking or jogging, painful with extension. So she found cleans and snatches really sore for her lower back. She forgot about it, but I could identify straight away just from viewing her and standing that her left foot was more pronated or flatter, essentially. Mm-hmm. The phrase I use is a lateral talar tilt, but that's mm-hmm. because the talus is tilted laterally. And so that made her left hip sit anterior or forward, which was kind of making her pelvis sit around to the right. So then when she went to arch back, her facet joint was already compressed in that position. And so then when I corrected her foot, it improved her hip position, which thus decreased how much compression she had in the lower back, and then she could arch back.
So for people that are training and it's a lifestyle, they train all the time, no injuries, everything's all good, how often should we be doing a checkup, something like this? Because I know my ankle's got pins in it and it rolls in awkwardly and I'm running all the time. Should I come and do something like that now to avoid it being too late?
Well, I guess the question is it symptomatic? Do you get pain or discomfort?
Little bit.
Little bit. So I guess the answer simply would be, yeah, get it checked, get it treated, see if there's anything that a physio would do for it. But for anyone listening that would go, oh yeah, now that you say it, I did roll my ankle a few years ago. It's not really an issue now, but in the last few months I've had some shoulder pain, or I've had some lower back pain, but I never had it before I did this injury or that injury or anything like that. The simple answer is, yeah, probably get it checked. It doesn't mean that it's like this rabbit hole of, oh, well, my foot's causing this, causing this, causing this, causing this. Often, like, it might seem like a really complex picture, but if you get a good assessment, it makes it quite simple moving forward. But if it's symptomatic or you're getting pain, then yeah, get it checked. Yeah. If you're not symptomatic, then keep on keeping on.
Yeah, I guess probably like, because like at the moment, like I'm training for an ultra. I want to just tick one off. And like last week I done 80 Ks for the total week and I felt good, but my last run was 32 and my ankle just feels a little bit just going up and down stairs. It's more during the run I'm fine. It's not so much like, it doesn't feel like muscle soreness. It feels like for the next week it feels just like it's going to give way almost. Yeah, just unstable.
And what happened to your ankle? You got pins in it, right?
Yeah. I broke it years ago. I had surgery, pins in it, and I feel like the range of motion's just not like. I remember you doing that test, and my knee doesn't go over my
toes, mate. Yeah. So I guess that's where you kind of talk about the history of the patient and go, okay, well, you broke your ankle. Do you get these symptoms on the right foot? I assume no. And so if you've had surgery, the joint isn't the same anymore. So it's probably more relevant for...
It's too different, yeah.
Probably more relevant for the video-based stuff, but if the listeners can follow along, if you use Google Maps to go somewhere, think of it like a straight line, it's the fastest way, right? But then one day there's a roadblock in the way. You can't go through it, so what do? You go around it, right? So is that curved path faster? No, it's just the next best option, right? The straight path was faster, but you still got to get around to where you're going. So that roadblock can be pain, trauma, fatigue, anatomical variance, the list goes on. So that, for you, your ankle is anatomical variance, there's previous trauma, and so you're not going to be able to function the same way as you used to. So your body goes around the roadblock, right? And especially if you have less range of motion. So every time you're running, you have less range of motion, altered biomechanics, so you're trying to get around the roadblock, but there's a consequence to that. So for you, without getting into the nitty-gritty of the anatomy and the biomechanics, what you need to do is see someone that can go, these are your roadblocks, let's get rid of them, and then retrain you to go back the fastest way possible. So often, for example, with the lower back, if you have a disc bulge or something like that, you get to a point where you get less sore, but in the time that you had the pain, it inhibits your core muscles doing their job. Other muscles get the job done for you. But after 48 to 72 hours, that's your new motor pattern. So then that's why people keep getting their back flare up. And it's less and less time between each flare up until you get rid of the roadblock and then retrain people to go back the fastest way possible.
Are you a specialist in...
I would say my specialty lies probably lower body for sure. Like I work really closely with ankle surgeon in Newcastle, so I get pretty much all of his post-op rehab stuff. So I'd say lower body, but lower back, so like lumbopelvic pain is probably my area of, I don't want to use the phrase expertise, but probably my specialty, probably what I see a lot of and what I do a really good job with. Like I can still treat the whole body, but lower back pain, I guess, having had it for a long time on and off, it's something I'm pretty passionate about, but something I probably do the subtleties of it really well. If it's something within my realm that I can treat, absolutely. But if you need to see a specialist because you've got a meniscal tear that I can't sort out, you need to go see them.
And they only do specific, like, it's just that.
Yeah, it depends on the surgeon themselves, right? There are some surgeons that might do shoulder, elbow, hip, and knee. But in my opinion, you're not a specialist. You're a generalized specialist. You typically pick the joint and stick with it. The only guys that can do two joints will be shoulder, elbow, elbow, hand, or hip and knee.
Okay.
But typically, these guys like Bruce Caldwell in Newcastle does just the knee. Minus Petralis does just the shoulder and some elbow. But the best guys stick with one area.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. Do you think you'll ever want to go down that path?
Nah, that's medicine. I've thought about going back and doing medicine in the past, but I love.
Is that another 4 years?
another 5 years, then
5.
plus like all the residency and all that trash that they have to live through. It's not easy training to be a doctor, and then once they get there, it's still hard work. So I sound a bit precious wanting to stay in my corner of physio, but I'm really passionate about it. And I guess for me, being able to change people's pain without using drugs or surgery or like a lot of that stuff is something I feel really privileged to be able to do.
Do you have anything against that?
Not at all.
No.
There's a time and a place for everything, and there's people that won't be able to change their conditions without pharmacological intervention, so without drugs.
Yeah.
There are people that need surgery. They can't. People that they're 75 and their knee's cactus and they need a knee replacement. They get it done, and they feel better even 5 days after the operation. You know, like so. I think there's a time and a place for everything, and I'm the time and the place for it as the physio.
Yeah,
it's something I'm really grateful to be able to do.
With that stuff, do you like? I know it's going to change case to case, but how much would you say go back to diet before looking at going to medication?
Oh, I think it's pretty big, especially with how many inflammatory foods are out there. So highly processed, refined sugars, like heaps of trans fats in food. So I'll probably sound awful, but like the American diet, fast food as well, which has like the like high fructose corn syrups, high sodium, all those sorts of things. I think will definitely contribute to inflammation in the body, and that inflammation will thus in turn increase the pain essentially. There's a physio who did a few courses with from Sydney, and her knee's pretty bad, and she goes, "Oh, Cameron, if I have a block, not a block, if I have a few pieces of chocolate, I know
a few blocks.
yeah, if I have 2 or 3 blocks of chocolate, I don't think anyone will feel good after that. But if she has a few pieces of chocolate, she'll feel sore for 2 or 3 days.
Really?
Yeah, her knee will flare up. Just from the sugar will make her more inflamed. So I think, it's got a huge role to play. That's why you don't just need to exercise. It's your whole your diet and your lifestyle.
Yeah.
So even getting good sleep, managing your stress. I think for me this year, been a really big learning curve on how to manage stress, especially.
Yeah. I wanted to come back to that. So with everything you've just went through, how much would you say of that is overtraining, that mental fatigue?
It's poorly managed stress. So even in the last 2 weeks, like I've out of sight improved my mental health. There's a book which was recommended to me by a friend of mine who's a psychologist. It's called Burnout, Solve Your Stress Cycle. So it's Emily and Amelia Nagoski, these 2 American psychologists. Well, one's a psychologist, one's the conductor in an orchestra.
Yeah, right.
But they wrote a book about burnout because the one sister would manage her stress really well. The other actually got hospitalized twice with partial organ failure because
of stress.
Because she wouldn't manage her stress. So I think managing stress, and the analogy they give in the book is, if you were to run away from a lion and you're running back to your village and the villagers kill it with spears and then they cut its head off, give it a ceremonial burial, you have a big feast and everyone goes, you're okay. Like that's a complete stress cycle, right?
Yeah.
But if that same lion's chasing you and then all of a sudden it disappears or it gets struck by lightning, you go, oh shit, like it's gone. Okay. But you're still in that heightened state. So your brain knows the threat or the stressor has gone, but your body doesn't know the stress is complete.
So is that like your subconscious?
No, it's your physical body. So emotions are like tunnels, right? So there's a start, like a tunnel through a mountain, sorry. So there's a start, a middle, and an end, right? So it's the entire process. So you have a fight with your partner, you get angry, you talk it through, you get to the end, you have a hug, and it's done. But if you have the fight, argue, walk out, or you don't see him, or you don't talk till the next day, you're still heightened, right? Still heightened, it's still there. And you can eventually wait till it goes away. But that stress cycle then gets stored in your body. Sounds bizarre, but you know some people go, oh, I store my stress in my shoulders, or I store my stress in my jaw. Or
This is that generational trauma and stress too, gets passed down through the body.
Exactly right. And that cycle, those stress cycles, will just continue to accumulate in the body. So that's where, don't know if you've experienced it before, but you just, some days you go, I don't know, I just feel like having a cry or just feel like stress for no reason. It's because your body wants to get that out of you again.
So what have you been doing to manage this stress? Like, I'm guessing a lot of it's coming from this book, or?
Yeah, so I didn't realize it, but like there's 6 techniques they use, they say are research-based. Physical exercise, so 20 to 60 minutes where you can get a heart rate up and you get a sweat. Physical affection, so a 6-second kiss, not 6 1-second kisses, but a 6-second kiss, 20-second hug, 20-minute cuddle. Genuine laughter, so like the laughter you have when your cheeks hurt.
Yeah.
Genuine human connection, so having like, you know, you debrief with a friend on the phone and you go, oh, I feel better for that. A big old cry.
Yeah.
And then there's one I always forget. Anyway, if I remember, I'll come back to it.
Yeah.
But you do those and you're letting your body go, oh, it's okay. Like you get to a point where you go, your body, you know in yourself, you go, I'm better now. So when I was in like that deep state of burnout where I was having panic attacks or high levels of anxiety, there were days where I was at work and I was still doing my job well and I was functioning, but I'd go home at lunch and for no reason, I just have a cry. For no reason. I just cry for 5 minutes or 10 minutes and I didn't understand why. But it was all this stress of family conflict, money pressure, high workloads. I was like working 6 days a week for 7 months this year and I'd have the one day off and that one day I'd have to meal prep or do X, Y, and Z. And by the time that was done, I'm like, oh, fuck, I've got work tomorrow. So I didn't realize that I was never solving the stress cycle. I was just perpetually letting myself feel stressed.
Did you know you were going through it?
Yeah, I didn't realize it until I went and saw there was a period of 5 nights where I slept about 2 hours. Every time I put my head on the pillow, I was having heart palpitations. I could hear not just hear heartbeat a little bit. It was like someone's like banging on the front door. And when I saw my GP and he gave me Valium, I slept. But I remember getting in the car straight after and I hate letting people down, and I drove straight to my employer, and I said meet me at the back because I was really in a bad way. I was really upset. But I remember just as I got in the car after I got to the GP, I put the 2 pieces of paper he gave me on the front seat, and it said, because he referred me to the psychologist that they have at the practice, and he's changed my life as well. But it wrote, thank you for seeing Cameron for generalized anxiety disorder. And I saw that and I get emotional talking about it now, but I just remember seeing that and I just lost it. Waterworks, just because I would never have said I was an anxious person. Like I've got diagnosed ADHD. So I'd always say like even if you see on the video of today, like I'm quite fidgety. I struggle with conversations kind of staying on subject. So I kind of have to think really hard about what my answer is before I say it so I don't go off on a tangent. But I would never have said I was a highly anxious person. I'd always say I was like happy-go-lucky. Like I always like to make people laugh. I've never been stressed. I'd always try to say I keep my beautiful wife grounded because she's quite the anxious one. But when I saw that on the piece of paper, I lost it. It was, one of the hardest times ever for me.
Is it because it feel like it's unveiling a new part of you didn't know was there, or like what was so hard about it?
I think it was part of it realizing, actually I am an anxious person. For a long time I managed my anxiety really poorly. Like I don't know if my wife would be happy for me to say this, but I was like addicted to porn for a really long time. And I think for a really long time it numbed me and I didn't really feel real emotion. I still felt like happiness, sadness and all those things, but instead of having the really big highs or the low lows, I was probably really numb to a lot of things. And I had like a bit of trauma through my teenage years with like my brother, family. My best mate died in a car crash when I was 17, carried his coffin at that age. And I've had a lot of different things happen in my life. And I think it was a really negative outlet for me to manage that. And I think it was probably about a month before I started having the panic attacks that I stopped looking at porn. Coming up to the wedding, I tried so many times to quit. And then I just somehow managed to commit to it. I just went, I'm not doing this anymore. And I think I was going through withdrawals at the time. And then, the panic attacks started happening. I wasn't sleeping. And upon reflection, I think it was a really poor coping strategy. And I think it's what was letting me manage my anxiety.
Yeah.
So since I've got rid of that, I would say I'm a generally anxious person now, but not highly. And I'm getting better every day and every week by managing my stress, which helps to manage my anxiety.
How often are you thinking about this to keep on top of managing it?
How often? Thinking about what?
Like day to day, how often are you thinking about these things to keep making sure you're doing these practices and keeping on top of it?
Not as much. So like initially so this has been like almost a 6-month process for me.
Yeah.
And I really feel for the people out there who are going through this every day for years and not getting help. Like the help is out there. You just got to reach out and your life can change overnight. But for me, initially, all I could think about was my anxiety, and I was developing secondary anxiety. I was getting anxious about being anxious. I would feel my heart rate go up, and I'll put my hand on my neck to feel my heart rate and go, calculate my beats per minute. And I go, oh shit, I'm at 80 beats per minute. Oh, now I'm at 90 beats per minute. Oh, and I wouldn't have a panic attack, but then I would have to go and do something. Then I realized once I got distracted, my anxiety felt better. So once I got on top of my secondary anxiety of, oh, I'm anxious about being anxious, I then realized a lot of it was burnout, not having the outlet through pornography to try and manage my anxiety. And then I didn't have powerlifting as the distraction or the outlet to manage it as well. And actually had to learn how to sit with those emotions, which was really, really hard. And it was really tough knowing that I wasn't going to completely be better until a lot of the workload had decreased. But because of the financial pressure of the wedding, I couldn't not complete all my work hours, and I couldn't pull out a footy because I was committed to the season. So all that time and energy was still being invested there, so I couldn't really get better. And someone told me burnout's like sunburn. You don't know you have it till you do.
Yeah.
And you can't get better till you're out of the sun.
Yeah.
So I knew that I just had to like bite down and just go, all right, I just got to weather this shit till I get back from the wedding. And since I've been back from the wedding, man, I'll tell you, like I've been so much better.
Yeah, that's great.
I feel like a different person, and I haven't looked at pornography since that very first time when I went, I'm done.
Yeah.
And I still struggle with anxiety some days. Some days are better than others, but overall, like I'm, so much better. So how often would I think about anxiety? Every now and then, like it's hard to ignore.
Yeah.
But you just learn to go, oh, it's just anxiety. You don't feed it.
Yeah.
There's an amazing book by Bev Elsbeth called Living with It. If anyone's listening that hasn't read the book that struggles with anxiety, she uses these fantastic cartoons. The book is so easy to read. You can read it in about an hour.
Yeah, wow.
But it's just, she paints this like little cartoon looking dragon in like the old school, like newspaper comic styles. And it's just like this cartoony looking dragon. And she goes, that's your it. That is anxiety. It wasn't, you might not have noticed it before, but he's there to stick around now. But once you learn to ignore it, it becomes less powerful.
When you first started these practices, but was it trying to rebuild new habits?
Fully, 100%.
And at that time, were you trying to, like, was it always on your mind? You're like, I've got to like, connect more with my friends and family and like them 6 pillars that you said before at the start when you first discovered this, was that a lot of effort thinking about it and trying to like just implement them into your life?
Man, like there's so many things I've done since the beginning. I like those 6 kind of complete the stress cycle methods. I've only been there for 2 weeks, and that's made it a huge change on its own. I would normally hold on to things for days at a time, whereas now I can go, all right, I just need to have a laugh or have a cry or give my beautiful wife a hug for 20 seconds and go, I'm okay, I'm safe now, you know?
Yeah.
But a lot of the strategies have been developing over a period of months. Like learning to say no. Learning to say no was one of the biggest, hardest things for me because I don't like letting people down.
Yeah.
But then doing things for me as well.
Yeah.
So in the past, I'd always want to do things for others to make me happy, but learning, like if you said to me even a couple of weeks ago, like what makes you happy or what do you enjoy doing? Like I'd probably shed a few tears because I'd say, I don't know. But just learn it, because for so long I've just had no time, and for like, especially like for mums out there with 2 kids and they work, like I don't know how they do it.
Yeah.
Like I just admire so many people so much, because realistically I had time, but in that time I would just sit and aimlessly scroll. So decreasing my phone time as well has helped a lot.
Yeah.
Taking away distractions, but yeah, like learning to say no, doing things for me that I actually enjoy. So kind of like almost rediscovering myself, as corny as that sounds. Yeah, creating boundaries as well. Like that's been a huge one for me. Solving a stress cycle. So learning how to go, all right, this issue is gone. Whether it's conflict with Alicia or family or friends or work or whatever, like coming up to opening the business, yeah, like money's tight. But even earlier this week, I went into a bit of an anxiety spiral. But then I went home and I went, no. Apply the method, solve the stress cycle. Don't try and solve everything in one go. And even seeing a psychologist to apply all these other little strategies, probably a little bit more specific for me, has been, super powerful.
Was there a moment when you had to sit down just with yourself and just be completely honest with what you're going through, how you're feeling, and just face that? Yeah,
it still happens. Like it was only really last week. I said to Alicia, I was really teary when I was saying it to her, and I'll probably try not to get teary now, but said I'll always have loved you no matter what. But like I feel horrible because there were times where I feel like I was so numb to the world and to her from managing my anxiety in that negative way using pornography. I go, like, I just feel so sorry. So like these realizations are still happening for me.
Yeah.
So it's still like this huge journey, but I understand why people get so passionate about mental health, because you can't see it.
Yeah.
It's not like you've got you're in a moon boot because your ankle's busted.
Yeah.
You can't see it. A friend of mine who I'm treating at the moment in the practice told me that he started having panic attacks a few days ago. And I wish I had someone like me go. I went straight to my backpack, grabbed that Living with It book and said, you need to read this.
Yeah.
If you can't sit and read it in one go, chip through it or read this bit here. It's going to change everything for you. And then I just touched base with him with the mobile phone call the next day. How you going?
Yeah.
How you doing? You will be okay.
Yeah.
Because when it started happening for me, I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah.
So I understand why people get so passionate about mental health.
Like, I don't know if you've seen it, The Promise, but we just like screened it all last year. We done 17 screenings across Australia, and after each one, we done Q&As with the audience. Me and Craig did, and this conversation that kept coming up in so many of them, and it's just always such a common thing, is you don't see it. And you look at the health system, if someone's got a broken arm or they've been in a car crash and they're dying, they get rushed straight in and they get treated straight away. I mean, they're straight in the emergency department. It's all happening. Mental health is just as life-threatening. It's one of the highest causes of death, like suicide. Like when you're looking at some of the statistics, the 4th leading cause of death in young people worldwide. Like it is horrible. But it takes months and months and months to see people and get that same treatment.
Unless you're paying out of your own pocket to see someone privately, if you want to get a mental health care plan and see a psychologist publicly, you're waiting months. And it's almost embarrassing because when I first had the panic attacks and I wasn't sleeping, I had no idea what it was. And Alicia said, it's just anxiety. But I remember just chatting to my parents, and my parents are super supportive, super loving, but sometimes can throw money at things to get them solved. And my dad said, let's go to Lake Macquarie Private. You pay the $400 and they'll do a checkup and check on everything. And they did. And of course I had a clean bill of health. My bloods were normal. The swab, no swab was normal. All my other vitals, everything was great. And I said to the doctor, why am I feeling this way? And even the the ED doctor kind of like almost scoffed at me. He said, "Mate, you're healthy. Get out of here."
Yeah.
But in that Bev Olsbit book, Living With It, it even says on one of these pages, you go to the hospital, you see the doctor, and they say you're healthy and you're fine. But you go, "No, I'm not." Well, no, because you can't. It's not always truly physical, but the pain and the suffering of mental health, it's so real.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you're managing it now and things good.
Yeah, I'll definitely say I'm on the other side.
Yeah.
And like everyone, like you have your good days and your bad days, but I've got to a point where I don't overthink it, and I don't let myself get to a point where I go, "Oh, like what's happening? Why am I feeling this way? I should feel this way. I shouldn't feel this way." I just go, it's not easy spinning around the sun on a rock.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy. Life's hard for everyone, but just take the good days with the bad and just keep on keeping on.